Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This will be my next Legacy of Yangchen chapter analysis video, and this one will be for chapter 19, which is called Landed. So you obviously have the thing about the chapter names from the last few. We have like baited, hooked, landed, so it's very much just like reeling in the catch, and this is obviously the idea of like this is when they finally get the advantage on Iwashi in this chapter. So this is a very game focused chapter. It very much is like the game is actually being played here. We see a couple of losses, but then we see Yangchen and Kavik turn it around. But there is a very nice in the middle moment here between Kavik and Yangchen about like basically, do you trust me? We need to continue with this. I can turn this around. Kavik being like, I can turn this around. Do you trust me to make this happen? I know how serious this is, just like you do. I can do it. And it's a big moment for their dynamic and the kind of quote-unquote redemption of Kavik. So, you know, it's not just all about the Sparrowbones game here. There is some nice character stuff going on as well. Especially Kavik, I think, gets to stand out quite a bit in this chapter. So, yeah, we open up and Iwashi has won again. This time it's Feast 4 Gales. 1,200 points, no extra bonuses. And Yangchen is just like, how do you keep dealing into him? Kavik doesn't really have any idea. He is really playing up, as we'll later see, just how annoyed and frustrated he is by his, poor run of luck here, but he continues to keep kind of going for it here. Yangchen realizes they are, they're really getting into some bad losses here, and every one of these losses is going to affect the people of Bin because they're betting with the budget of the town, of course. And they note that if this continues, Bin could become a silent Tianhaishi, just like literally sucked dry by all these debts, as opposed to what happened to Tianhaishi. But it will be a similar situation of just a major town city will disappear just because of these actions effectively. And that's why Yangchen is so distracted in a way during all of this. And because all she can think about is, I am betting with a percentage of the money that is meant to run Bin. What am I doing here? Kavik, you're meant to be good. Why aren't you doing this? Kavik asks for a break just for a few minutes. Iwashi says, of course, he's so confident. He's winning. He feels nothing can turn this around. He's just so in control here. So Yangchen rushes out. And again, they're keeping up the act of this kind of new couple. He's trying to impress her by getting her glider back. And now it's all gone wrong. There's going to be an argument out here because, they're quote unquote special friends, of course. So Kavik continues to act like all flustered. And then he's like, can they hear us? When they get outside, Yangchen creates a kind of cyclone around them so to cancel the noise out. And then finally he gets all like cool and relaxed once he realizes he can talk openly. So he's kind of been fully aware about what's going on. Iwashi is cheating. He's cheating, he's elbow leeching, edge reading, wall gliding, every dirty trick in the book. And Yangchen's just like, really, it was that simple. Like, sleight of hand is all he's doing here. And she realizes, oh yeah, I've been incredibly distracted. I've not been focusing on the little details I would usually notice. And obviously Kavik has been doing a very good job acting like he's incredibly flustered because he's the main one playing and he's been losing, but he's been aware of this the entire time through. He was only testing the waters at first. I wanted him to think he could keep getting away with it. When we go back in there, I need your help to re-raise the stakes as high as we can. And Yangchen is like, what? Are you kidding? But if we lose, like we are done. Like there's nothing we can do. If we out him for cheating, we can at least maybe get the money we've already lost back. But Kavik notes, like, getting caught isn't going to faze him. He's a hypocrite and a bully. He was never interested in a fair game or a test of skill. He just likes to hurt people. He can't handle a real battle where he faces losing. So again, this is his whole view on money. It's not just that he doesn't care about wealth. He already has that. He views it as, in this case, by him taking a lot of money from other people, he is quote unquote killing them because that money equates to real world stuff. So that's an interesting dynamic there. But Kavik, realizes he has to convince Yangchen here. He takes her hand. I've said I've hated Bin-Er in the past, and maybe that's still true. But it's my city whether I like it or not, and I'm not going to let its people be robbed by a thief who doesn't even need the money. Didn't you tell me once that we had to fight for complete strangers as hard as we do for our friends? And that was a great moment from the first book when that kind of came out. That is the avatar and companion dynamic, that it has to be for the randomers just as much as it is for the important people and their friends. And she's like, oh, like, this is not like him to make a big grand gesture like this. She tries to pull her hand away. He puts her hand like on his neck. Feel my pulse. I'm telling the truth when I say this here. Look me in the eyes. Have faith in me. I can beat him. And she knows he is telling the truth. Or at the very least, he fully believes that he can beat Iwashi. So she finally pulls her hand away and is like, your skin is clammy. And Kavik's like, I know. I was waiting for that. Because water, he's a waterbender. How are they going to counter the cheating? Counter cheating. And Kavik is fully prepared for this because the main thing he has learned from the Order of the White Lotus is a lot of very, very subtle waterbending. How to waterbend without people knowing, with minimal movements and minimal water. That's what we're going to see here as they turn the game around. So they prepare to go back in, they start and then hide their argument, doing it in a way where it comes across as realistic, as like a couple's argument, like, you had to show off, didn't you? Had to look like a big man and get my glider back. Well, excuse me for trying to defend your honor, as they're kind of whispering loudly to each other as they walk back in. So they kind of sit back down. Yangchen is just like, I don't think I can continue anymore. But they know that this is part of the game. They're trying to fully catch Iwashi to keep him going. So Yangchen's just like, the monks taught me that gambling is not a good thing. This has been a cautionary tale here. And Iwashi's like, what if I paid out gold to your silver? So what if we had a little bit of an imbalance thing where, like, I will actually like give more if I lose, whereas you still only have to play with silver. And Kavik kind of jumps on this, feeling like, oh, the game isn't over. That's great. I have a chance to kind of come back and win. But Iwashi just thinks it's going to go the exact same way as before. So Kavik is playing into his hands, but the reality of it is actually the other way around. They're fully prepared for him this time out. Because Iwashi just wants to kind of bleed them dry here, basically. Take all of their money, so they're in kind of really, really bad debt. So they sit down to kind of play here. Even Chaisi is kind of like, you probably shouldn't do this in a way. So they get back down to playing here. And then, boom, out of nowhere, Yangchen just kind of monitoring what's going on here. And suddenly a flashing sensation, like a needle's touch, there and gone. She almost turned her head to chase it. What was that? A stack collapsed and tiles spilled towards the edge, towards Iwashi's edge of the table. A miniature landslide. So this is a foul in the game. Iwashi's losses are going to be doubled this time if he loses. So this is Kavik doing some subtle waterbending here to make the sort of like tower in a way that they build with the kind of pieces kind of collapse on his side. So that's what's going on here. Like, Kavik is laser focused on the game here, now that he's kind of turning things around. Chaisi asks, have you two been enjoying the nightlife? Yangchen says, yeah, we saw Shadow play, the Lost Slipper. Kavik is just laser focused again. Didn't care for it, but Chaisi's like, oh, that's one of the few plays with any maturity and realism. And Kavik kind of counters that with, the poor man dies in the street and the evil minister trips over the corpse, embarrassing himself in front of the king. Is that supposed to be a satisfying, ironic ending? I hate tales like that. Why is the humiliation of the strong considered a good enough trade for the lives of the weak? And Chaisi's only response to this is, such is the nature of the world, barring a freak occurrence, power consolidates, it doesn't disperse. So this is where they draw their kind of tiles here, and he just notes that, I suppose that's why I've stuck with this game through ups and downs. Everyone starts on an equal footing, and so finally Kavik wins here. Feast, Flight of the Returning Swallow Moths, and so he gets 10,000 base points. Doubled for self-drawn, doubled for my first turn, then doubled once again on Iwashi for his Trove penalty. So a huge turnaround here, and the idea is that this has pretty much like got them back even again at the very least. All their losses have kind of come back on them again. But of course, Iwashi, after a loss, is going to immediately want to try and kind of get that back, and so the game will continue. They're drawing it out, giving the other team on the ship more time. Everyone is surprised by this, congratulations, your luck has finally come in, of course. And Kavik even starts to get really confident here. He's playing the role very well. In a way, kind of following the example of like Chaisi's attendance from like a chapter or two ago, of like the extremes of like freaking out when he loses, but now being aggressively confident when he's winning. All to make Iwashi either super confident himself or furious at like his overconfidence. So that's what's happening here. This is going to lure him in to continue kind of betting now that the tables have been turned here. So yeah, this is the whole idea of like, yes, the subtle water bending has kind of turned the game around. So it does get explained here that luck had nothing to do with it. For a brief instant, Kavik had frozen some of the tiles together using his own sweat and the ambient humidity in the room. Not enough to stick them together like glue and leave evidence of what he'd done, but just enough to make Iwashi botch his sleight of hand. The same subtle waterbending technique let Kavik manipulate the pile as it was rebuilt by sticking the ivory surfaces to his frosted skin. And Yangchen is only aware of this because she herself is a waterbender. So crazy subtle waterbending from Kavik here to get them the advantage. So the final section here. So this is where we go into like the final hand effectively. Yangchen is using some subtle firebending to bring the heat up, to make everyone a little bit more on edge, help with the sweat as well, so there's more water at play. And so, yeah, she's about to take her turn, and she feels that like things have turned so much that like she can win just by herself, but it would be a kind of like relatively small win if she just goes for it here. But then she goes to take some of her drink, and she notices that it's frozen. And so she realizes this is a kind of code from Kavik to, basically freeze your turn in a way. To just play like to continue the game. Don't end it here. Because he has a chance to kind of give them a huge profit here with the big victory, of course. So he then also realized, this is what I need you to do on your turn. There's a bead of sweat on the back of Yangchen's neck, and she feels it sort of like pulse. And so he does this basically like 3 times, signaling that, give me a 3 tile. And so that's what she does. She palms the 3 of mountains. She can do sleight of hand as well. She rubbed some condensation from her drink on the back and flicked it under the table at Kavik. He wasn't ready for this. He nearly panics, but she freezes it to his trousers, of course. And so he gets the tile that he needs to make the big play. And even though it was this thing where they nearly gave it all away, because of what they'd set up from before, the reaction from Iwashi is just like, oh, would you two stop making eyes at each other and just play? Thinking it's just the couple kind of not able to stop staring at each other. So this is where Yangchen is just like, this is a huge hand. If Liu wins with any double, he gets back everything we've bet so far and the points difference in gold ingots. Bin could have 8 wells instead of 4. And Chaisi is just like, or a spectacular grave tiding festival of its own. You made yours sound so nice. So everything to really make Iwashi furious here and just make him make the wrong move. He wavered over his discard before selecting a 5-leaf, the safest option according to the information on the table. But then Kavik is like, it pains me to do this, but feast swords in the armory, 8,800. And Iwashi just loses it at this point. I know how many it's worth. Again, Chaisi is now urging him to quit, but he wants to continue on. We're not stopping in the middle of a rotation, but, you said that 2 rotations ago, basically. We're still continuing on, so he's lost quite a lot up to this point. But then the game actually comes to an end because the signal has been activated at this point from the other team, and so it had to be really obvious to fully bring an end to everything, and that's exactly what it is. Kavak's like, does anyone else smell smoke? Yangchen is just like, column of smoke out the window. What's going on here? The Bliss Eternal was ablaze. So Iwashi's ship is on fire. That was the signal. So very, very clear cut here. The game was officially over, so was the mission, and Yangchen discovered that when it came to screaming, Iwashi was almost as good as she was. So this is how we finally bring our Sparrowbones game to a close. And look, it's an interesting chapter because, of course, the money is important. Like, this means they've basically got the glider back. Yangchen's glider is back. They have more than enough money to kind of fund whatever they wanted to do in Bin-Er, which was the problem, of course, at the top of the book. And now we also have, the plan has worked out as well. Now, even though like later on the book will kind of make it kind of clear that this maybe wasn't as important of an event as maybe we thought it was, there's still some important kind of benefits that actually come out of this. Like the Iwashi stuff, I think, is important in the book, and his characterization, and Yangchen, I think, needed to interact with him. And then even just in this chapter, the trust me moment between Kavik and Yangchen, I think, is actually very strong, because it's him really showing her, like, I care about the city too. I am not just doing this out of any sense of pride. I have been in somewhat control of the situation. If you trust me and work with me, we can turn this around. And that's exactly what they've done. So in a way, this little bit of faith in him has been paid back already. And so it's a further step on the sort of redemption of Kavik here. And it shows that like the two do operate quite well together. Like they both have that kind of, good heart, but also the spy master aspect to them. And so they're so similar in so many ways. It is the perfect avatar and companion kind of partnership going on here. So yes, a very game-focused section. I would say, like, I'm not sure how much of a great sense for what Sparrowbones necessarily is I got from the chapters, in that, like, it very, very much felt like, there's not enough here to in any way try and figure out, like, the actual rules of Sparrowbones and make it into an actual game. Very similar to Pai Sho, where there's a lot of just, like, general, like, and they placed tiles and it was strategic and stuff happened, and you get what's going on. But of course, we wish these games, they would actually like make them. Like, why is there no official Pai Sho yet? They have to do that at some point. Hopefully they come up with a official version eventually. And maybe this Sparrowbones game is interesting as well, because it seems kind of interesting, because there's like a description of like, there's like a pyramid and you're stacking pieces and you're taking pieces out, and it's like, what is it, like Jenga or something like that, but not really. It's kind of hard to fully make out what exactly the game is, but I think you get the gist at the very least of it. But interesting stuff. And then like even Chai-Si being there, like the main villain of the book is there, but she's almost not involved in the whole thing. But it's almost in a way just as off-putting as like there's this crazy situation happening between a different Zhongdu and Yangchen, and then Chai-Si is just there in the middle of it, like in a way happy to accept a certain amount of losses herself, just like no problem, because she plays it so cool that effectively it might be a little bit in the next chapter or something like that. I'm pretty sure she comes out of the game like net even. Like any wins that she had was mitigated by any losses she had, so she effectively comes out of it, I think, with, I'm pretty sure the only thing she ends up losing is the pearl that she offered as the kind of item in the first place. But money-wise, I think she comes out of this even. So, she was just fully, viewing the interactions between everyone else at the table, not really trying to do anything herself, because she doesn't need it, is the basic idea. So, interesting stuff. Like, it's always fun in these type of stories when you have this sort of like the characters go in with a game plan, it doesn't quite go right, but they turn it around, and Kavik's subtle waterbending here, it was a nice way to do it. So pretty positive marks for me on this. It still maybe is a section that goes on a little long. I don't think they needed to do it overall, with the way where they had the first chapter happen and you jump in the middle of the action and then you go backwards. I think that is a little bit kind of needless, kind of complicated structure. What is ultimately a very simplistic kind of setup, where you could absolutely just basically get rid of that initial chapter in the middle and just put it in order, and it works just as well. Like, I don't know, like I don't look back on the book and feel like the little kind of cliffhanger of like they were losing all the money at the end of those couple of pages was anything fantastic that wouldn't have just been the action kind of progressing. But it's a minor point, but it's like it was not needed, that structure flip here. Other points in this book, I think it works a lot better, but it probably was done a few too many times in this book. But they're my thoughts on the chapter. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.